Hello and welcome everybody. Jordan, would you like to come put your video on as well? We still have people joining in.
It says I can't start the video.
Let me help you with that. Let me help you with that. Give me a second.
Okay, let's try again. There we go.
Oh, there you are. Amazing. Good to see you.
Likewise.
So let's give people another 30 seconds to join in. There we go. So meanwhile, what's the weather like?
In Austin here, it's awesome. Relaxed. It's in the perfect time of year where it's easy to be outside in a shorts and a t-shirt, and it's not like crazy hot like an oven.
I love how we are starting a conversation about conversation as meditation with how's the weather.
One of the things I love is like finding depth in anything and everything. And so I was actually just talking about weather with somebody recently in Texas, especially when you get into a hot car, it's like you come into an oven. And I used to hate that feeling. It's so hot. And then I realized like, this just demands presence. Like, boom, all I can feel is heat. And I suddenly am like one with the heat. And so now I love getting into a burning hot car.
Amazing. You're reminding me of my, my relationship with heat changed when I went for a 10-day meditation course in a place called Jaipur. Jaipur is in Rajasthan. It's one of the hottest parts of India, like a desert. And my first meditation course was, actually my second meditation course was there for the 10-day meditation course. And they believe that you should not have the fan on because it interferes with natural meditation. So it literally was like an oven for 8 hours a day. And then I go to my room at night, it had been getting heated up the whole day. So my mattress was hot, my bed was hot, everything was hot. And I just remember 10 days of literally being in an oven. And till today, I associate heat with good meditation. What kind of association of that? All right, so I think I'm just gonna get started with today, although we already started. Want to really thank you, Jordan, for making this time and joining us, introduce you to my community. Many of them are already live, and the rest of you will watch, I think will watch the recording. It's also being telecast or whatever, shared live on YouTube. I want to just quickly give a little bit of a lead in into what this is about. I remember myself being quite socially awkward as a kid, never quite knowing how to behave. Because in my homes, somehow my parents are not particularly social. We didn't have that many people coming over. Once in a while we'd have. So I somehow felt a little awkward in social situations and parties and things like that. And I just didn't know what to do with I didn't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know what to talk about. Everything felt awkward. And I could do well with talking with a few people or with my friends, but in a so-called party situation, I would always be awkward. And it's been a journey for me to realize that I don't have to fit into what other people are expecting, that I can actually choose the conversations I want to have. And what I've learned in my own intuitive way, I feel when I came across the movement of authentic relating circling, and especially the work that your community is doing, then it's like, wow, there are people who spend much of their lives understanding how human connection works. And that's fascinating to me, that, we can study about everything. We can study about science, the weather, we can study about electronics. But how often are we taught, or do we study human connection? So it was in 2014 or 15 where I attended an authentic relating gathering. I think it was Authentic Relating Games in Salt Lake City, USA. And I really enjoyed it. And I had some of the facilitators come over to my retreat and share there as well. And then I kind of lost touch because I came back to India and there wasn't much happening in India. And recently my friend Roy Jacob put me back in touch with some of the different communities. And that's where I got in touch with you and Sarah Ness and some of the others, at least a community, not directly with her. And so I've really been enjoying this in the last 2 months, to the extent that I've started a local circling authentic relating group right here in this town I live in, Pune. And I wanted to introduce this work to my broader community through you. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but just for me, the conversations we've had have been so enriching, and not by trying to make them enriching. It's just been very natural with both you and Valerie, who's also part of your group. It's just felt like an effortless meditation. It just felt like I effortlessly was in the present. I felt very deeply seen, in a way that's much deeper than, there are people who connect with me all the time, but I felt maybe by you and Valerie, you kind of got me in a way that not many people can get me. And what a beautiful art that is, what a beautiful skill that is. So today is about people getting to know you and getting to know this work, and perhaps us actually modeling this work to some extent. And then toward the end of this call, asking and finding out how they can get involved in various different ways. I'd love for you to suggest resources for people in India and other parts of the world. I think there are people in different parts of the world, but maybe mostly from India for this particular call. That's where I am. And with that, I want to hand it over to you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. And I appreciate you. This may be your normal wake up time, but for me, the time that you're in is just way too early. So I'm grateful that you work with my body and my rhythm. And I can say a little bit about where I come from, but just before that, when you spoke about that awkwardness in a party situation, I can feel my own awkwardness right now. Like my belly has that, you guys probably all recognize that anxious feeling, this kind of, oh crap, like there's a bunch of people I can't even see. There's 42 people I can't see. I'm supposed to somehow do something or be something, I don't know, valuable. And like, what if I'm not good enough? And it's all this is just happening in my belly, in my body, in my emotions. And so one of the things that it's a kind of sneak peek that we'll be talking about that we especially do with circling is not say no to anything. So a lot of times we think, oh, we're going to study human connection and we're going to get really awesome at it. And I think this is one of the things that you and I connected on is just the humanity being imperfect and imperfect in that. But it's actually that by welcoming this sensation of nervousness, of fear, and I don't need to make it right. I don't need to make it wrong. I don't need to give into it. I don't need to push it away. It's simply part of the presence that we're in right now. And that kind of simply part of that, I can welcome it and bring it into this talking with you guys and talking with you, Nitya. That's really what the conversation, meditation as conversation practice is all about. And so in some ways, it's
just hearing you say that, I found I got more present. I got a little out of my head and more into my body, and I got interested in what's happening with me. So it's beautiful that as you shared that, it made me more present, more alive to where I am.
Exactly. And that's the other amazing thing about this is that, this is true of all meditation and definitely what you bring. You don't need anyone else to be different to find that presence. And yet coming into it in yourself, you end up inevitably impacting others in this positive way. So yeah,
would you like to share a little bit about your journey to circling and just about your community before we get into an actual conversation as meditation, exploring that theme more deeply?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I came into this from it actually originally a combination of integral theory and my own spiritual explorations. I've been meditating for many years, and I don't know why. I really attribute it to grace. But when I first found like a meditation, really in college, I mean, I'd done a little bit of experimentation before. I just committed. I just decided I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life for an hour. And I mostly stuck to it. And I would be, I was in college in America, so I would be like hammered. I was drinking like 3 or 4 nights a week, and I'd be like kind of like meditating, like swaying because I'm kind of drunk and like trying to explore this meditative state while I'm, But there was something in me that, and I think this is part of your story, kind of leaving the monastery and coming back into the world as well, that wanted always that meditation should be some presence, aliveness, this kind of intimacy with life itself or consciousness moving as us, can be fully integrated into the modern world. And there's no need to separate it out. It's wonderful if that helps you. But that my calling was always somehow to bring it in. And when I first encountered circling in a really actually, when I first encountered circling, it didn't catch me the first time. I was like, this is cool. I was leading a community of integral practice at my house. We'd meet in my living room, and it was like, this is cool, but it didn't quite stick. And after a little bit of time and then getting introduced to some other practitioners, I started to see, wow, like I can bring spirituality in this grounded, joyful, holistic embrace in every moment. And it's not something it's something I had read about, but now I was experiencing it in the moment. And so that's where I started leading more and more. I was having circling sessions in my bedroom, and people were, enough people were showing up that I was like, I think I need to stop doing this in my bedroom. It's probably creeping people out.
Just very briefly, I don't think everyone here is familiar with integral theory. So if you can talk a little bit about what integral is.
Yeah. So, and of course it can mean, a lot of people talk about math and like integrals and calculus, and this is something totally different, although I love math too. It's has roots in Sri Aurobindo. It has roots with some of the kind of developmental psychologists, Jean Piaget back in the day. But it really kind of got codified by this philosopher named Ken Wilber. And basically, he's like, there's no way that anyone is smart enough to be 100% wrong. There's some tiny bit of truth in everything, but some things are more true than others. So how do we fit that together? And how do we make sense of the scientific paradigm that's brought us great life extension and health and well-being with the kind of mystical paradigm that says whatever you're searching for, you already have? And integral theory is one way of trying to attempt to address this.
I remember coming across Ken Wilber. I think I first really encountered him when I read that book, Grace and Grit, about him and his wife. Yeah. And I think that's where but before that, he just seemed like an arrogant philosopher to me. Honestly, just feel like he thinks he knows too much. I came across his books in my monastery when I was a monk. And then I really began to appreciate that, wow, what a unique, that he's actually managed to find a framework where all possible human knowledge, exactly the way you said it, there's some grain of truth in everything. And how do you bring those grains of truth together from which to project out to get a sense of how everything fits together, at least in some conceptual way? Because when you have at least a conceptual, every great wisdom tradition has a great conceptual tradition that goes along with it. To this new age idea of saying, oh, all thinking is wrong, hopeless, is actually not so helpful. Every great wisdom tradition has some sense, has some cosmology, has some understanding of how everything fits together, even though that is a concept and that is a map, and the map is not the terrain. But nevertheless, so that for me was very helpful, and it gave me very beautiful perspective. Really helped me be less of a spiritual elitist, and I could see how everything actually fits together in a more comprehensive way. Just because that's my preference doesn't mean that's the only way to look at life.
And it's just so confusing, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. Like, you have one teacher telling you do this, and the other teacher is telling you to do the exact opposite thing. Circling says feel all your emotions, and someone else is like, no, you don't need to feel emotions, just witness them and let them pass by. It's like the weather. And then someone else is saying this and someone else is saying that, and it's just like, really. And then when you're talking about awakening, people are talking about all these things that you're like, are they totally making stuff up? Or these people are seeing beings and seeing angels. Is it real? Is it not real? What even is reality? Is it just a dream that it gets so confusing that it's really helpful to have some map.
Yeah, very nice. This is one of, if you have to have a map, it's good to have a good one. And I think the integral map is one of the best that I know of.
Yeah.
Great. Let's, if you want, we can shift gears a little bit into what exactly, I mean, I know you can't probably define it so clearly, but just to engage with the question, what is circling? How is it different from authentic relating? Is it the same? And then maybe we can model some of that to some extent.
Yeah. One of my favorite ways to answer the question is to ask a question. Because part of the way part of what circling is this attunement to the moment. It's so easy for me to go into like, well, I've got a set answer, I've got a pat way of telling you guys here, this is what circling is, why you should try it. And I basically take that and I look at it and then I throw it out. And I try to discover in this moment with you and with the 44 people here now and with the audience on YouTube and the people watching later, you know, what way is going to actually speak to your heart in a meaningful way right here and right now, that you can get a sense of what it is, and how can I live it as I'm saying it. And so I'm kind of thinking, and I'll answer this question too, like what's something caught your attention about this practice or this way of being that had you want to dive in? What was unique about it?
For me, it reminded me of those few magical, alchemical moments in my life where I have had deep human connection. And it just seemed to, maybe part of it was intention, but most of it seemed to be by accident. Like, whoa, that went so deep. That conversation, that friend I've known for so long. But that particular evening, that hour or two we spent, it just went so deep. And I really felt seen. I really felt heard. I really felt that we were on the same page at a much deeper level. And that's happened, I think, I would imagine, to most people in their intimate relationships, maybe with a sibling, maybe with a friend, maybe with a stranger. Maybe they went to a different culture and they met someone. And those intimate moments, sometimes they're just a few seconds. And
Right.
I've had that. And I was very excited when I said, wow, these people have actually studied what makes this happen. And instead of it being so accidental,
Right.
it can be more frequent. And they're actually, it's chances for us to access this in a less accidental way. There actually is some technology and science and knowledge about what ways of being allow me to have that deep, open-hearted sense of connection with people in my life and with life itself, not just with people. I guess that's my broad answer to your question.
Right. And that feeling of being seen, like as you speak of it, you're like, yeah, that moment I felt seen, I felt heard. You kind of feel it a little bit, right? Like in your memory.
I do. Yeah.
What's happening there? Like, what are you noticing? What are you feeling?
It's taking me back to a time where I began to see things differently. I saw myself differently. I saw this person in front of me differently. Everything kind of slowed down in a sense. I was aware of my own thought process too. I was kind of witnessing my own thought process and my emotional process. I feel like, wow, I've come into this little secret room where life can also be experienced like this. Like normally I'm just caught up in reaction and my normal
Yes.
sense of me. But I've come into a secret room. It's like, wow, this is so cool. Why can't we be like this more? That's the kind of
Yes.
memory I'm getting.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I find it fascinating because there's some sense in like that. I love that, the secret room. And we could say like that's what circling is basically unlocking the door to the secret room so you can just go there and relate like that all the time. And then it brings up this inquiry that I'm in myself about this idea of being seen, because it really speaks to this part of the human experience I think we've all felt, or being heard. And yet what's so fascinating is what you describe is actually there's a freshness or a newness to the experience. Like you're being seen, and yet you're kind of outside of yourself in your seenness. So it's like who's being seen? Who's the I that gets seen in that moment and feels that and knows that?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. I'm like, yeah, I feel it. I'm like, wait, like my body and my personality is reacting to this, and I'm somewhat outside of it, even as I'm feeling it more deeply. And that could be another way of saying what circling is that you're able to kind of take perspective or meditate or witness or be in awareness or awareness of awareness while being fully embodied in your humanness. And then you get to do that in relationship so that you're not so self-centered, self-oriented. So you get better and better at stepping outside of that kind of structure of separation, really, and enter more into that connection and get curious about others and get curious about the, not just what Nitya is and what Jordan is, but what's the kind of line connecting us as an entity, and who are we as a result of that rather than as the cause of that line.
Yeah, I'm noticing I'm becoming quite silent inwardly as I'm meeting what you're saying, and I'm experiencing in my own way along with that. And what's beautiful is that it's a pretty comfortable silence. Normally in a webinar, I might want to be thinking of what to say next, because silences could be awkward. But in this particular context, to me, it seems quite okay to be relatively silent and to not really know what to say next.
Yeah. I feel this kind of amazing spaciousness and relaxedness from my like sternum up, and then my belly still has that crazy anxiety. But I'm relaxed in it, like you're saying.
I'm noticing at a physical level, my body is slightly warmer than it is. Maybe I didn't get as many hours of sleep as I needed. And it's not because of you, it's just because I just woke up earlier than I needed to. That's one. And I'm also feeling slightly dehydrated. I normally keep a bottle of water when I do these sessions, and I don't have one. And I'm also noticing I'm not trying to push this discomfort away. I'm not trying to judge myself for the sleep or not keeping the water, or I'm just actually okay with it. I'm actually almost enjoying it. And at some level, along with our conversation, there's a thread going. What is it like to witness, and what is it like to feel? It's almost like a dichotomy of, when I'm witnessing, in a way, I'm taking a step back. I'm actually getting disembodied in a sense. Not disconnected, but at least distant. And with feeling, I'm zooming right in. And in this moment, some curiosity at the back of my mind is, so what is that? What is it to step back? What is it to step in? Are they really separate? Do they happen together? And that's like a side thing that's going on within me as we're talking.
Right. So now we're basically circling now, right? We're at least the beginnings of it. We're noticing our experience. And there's a couple things we can add to that, which kind of fill out the exploration of the relationship. And one of them is we can use anything that's happening in awareness. So even that curiosity, it can be a complex intellectual curiosity to explore your relationship, who you are to it, who I am to it, and what our relationship to each other is in the moment. So I get curious as you kind of look at that curiosity, you notice this comfortable silence. What's it like to be you?
There seems to be something radiating outward, like a subtle energy radiating outward of some kind. There also seems to be a pretty stable presence.
And that stable presence is something that I imagine you kind of not take for granted, but it's so stable that it's kind of like in the background for you. Is that right?
It's very available. I wouldn't say it's always something I notice, but it's quite available. And especially when something starts shaking me more, then I come right back to that. It's like, that's my resting place. Right. So yes, in some sense. And it doesn't seem to be something I've cultivated. It's more like something I've become familiar with. So in a sense, I like to think that we all have this. Everybody listening to this has exactly that. In fact, my name means that Nitya Shanti means unchanging peace, or stable peace, or the abiding peace, right? And I guess the place I speak from or share from is that we all have this, but maybe we haven't noticed.
Right.
And it's an invitation to get more familiar with it. But I do appreciate your asking that. I think that was nice to come back to that presence.
Yeah, there's something that I still want. I love hearing that unchanging piece is your name, and part of your. It's like you're literally I am unchanging peace. That's what my I amness is, and even more literally, like all of you are also unchanging peace. You're all me. I'm all you. And so, yeah, in a way, your mission is like this continual remembrance of yourself in yourself and in others.
Beautiful.
Do you
And
feel?
this is maybe an aside, but wasn't Jordan the promised land sort of thing? What is
Yeah.
your yeah?
It's,
So looking at your name, I get like, even though I'm kind of fooling, I'm gonna mess your name up, but it's like the paradise and all in, like almost to me, to my Indian ears, it sounds all in. I'm all in for paradise. I don't know if anyone interpreted your name like that, but it's like, let's go all the way. Let's really awaken this paradise on earth, which is possible. And that's the way your name. I like to play with words as well. So.
I feel seen. I am all in on making this paradise. Yeah, it's wonderful. Another thing that I noticed being with you, this is so consistent. I smile a lot. And even like the comments on this webinar, in the chat, amazing, wow, there's such a positivity radiating, like you said, in your subtle energy in your whole field. It's a real joy to be with.
I know that people, when they first meet me, they're sometimes skeptical that am I really like this? Like, I don't know, I just am the way I am. I think you're covering something up, and maybe I am. I don't know, but
you're like, yeah, if I am covering something up, let's find it, because I
let's
love
find
that.
it exactly.
Love it.
Let's find it.
They're like, see there, you're doing it again.
I feel like asking you, because I know yet that your work and the work your community is coming up with is so deep and so rich. It's like you're really the pioneers in this whole new field of relationship as meditation, conversation as meditation, day-to-day life as meditation, every setback as an opportunity to wake up to new parts of yourself. I mean, to me, this is the most amazing, grounded, humanistic spirituality that I can think of, And I feel curious about, because I think there's such a richness that you embody. I feel curious about, how do I articulate this? Like, what for you is the leading edge? What for you really gets you lit up and say, wow, can we really go there with this? Is that also possible? I guess I'm curious about that.
It's a great question. And yeah, if some like self-consciousness, the answer might be disappointing, but because I feel like in the early days of my practice, I pushed every possible edge. Like, can I feel the depths of hell? Can I feel the deepest pain that in myself and in others? Like, let me break every boundary that I imagined was necessary, and for whatever reason. And some of it, really beautiful. Like, I'm crawling on the floor, chasing after a kid that I'm playing with in the restaurant, and because it's just, breaking that assumption of what needs to be done or the way I should act. And some of it with, not so positive results. I feel like I've done a lot of that exploration, and the community has done a lot of that exploration. If we fully express ourselves, what happens? And it wasn't really nice for a lot of people. And we found, I think, a more mature, kind of grounded, integrated version of you have that total freedom. And it's not often that you want to use it, because there's the truth. It's not just, oh, I'm going to speak my truth. my truth includes you. My truth includes how much I love you, how much I care about you, how much you matter to me. And so there's a kind of a truth that's beyond me and my minus. So in this kind of integration, what I find myself doing, and I think the community at large, is it's almost like deepening our roots in the mainstream, in the kind of obvious, and finding the wow or the wonder or the awe or the beauty in things like you mentioned Valerie, and I think she's here right now. Yeah, I said something about let's go to the deepest whatever, and she was like, hold on, let's throw out the word deep, you know. So there's something that's the edge for me is like, how do we find depth and non-depth, and translate this, like you said, the science of human connection to it, like to bring the complexity fully without making it any less than it is, but also make it simple, so that you guys listening to this can walk away and start circling. Wow. Or start bringing meditation in your conversations right now. And you might join our community, you might practice online, but even if you don't, your life has been inalterably bettered because you can take away something so simple but fresh from this.
I love that, because it also seems to be where I am, because I've kind of done that, in a slightly different way. I went to the deep end, became a Buddhist monk. And that also the most austere kind of monk in my tradition, a forest meditation monk, where we took on a lot of optional practices that the Buddha gives. Things like not sleeping at night sometimes, and eating one meal a day, and wearing rag robes, and really pushing the limits. And then all these different expansions of consciousness that come along with that, and meeting some really cool teachers and trying some really cool. But after a while, and trying that, then also coming back and still trying all kinds of different energy healing modalities, and shifting transformative modalities, and really now coming to a place of just such simplicity. And I don't have that many tools to offer. At one level, yeah, they're an encyclopedia of things I've read and done and experienced to some extent. Yeah. But I just want to be innocent, and I just want to show up. And in this moment, what's serving? And just like when I asked you what's circling, you turned the question back to me. I find myself doing that a lot of the time. When people are asking me, I'm saying, and what do you think? And getting them back to their own resourcefulness instead of looking for an answer from outside. So I really feel a resonance with what you said. And I'm wondering where this is leading to. The curiosity is there. How fascinating that we've gone from the simplicity beyond the complexity. And now what? And now maybe it's just, I don't even know. It's good. It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love complexity. So there's such a calling there. And a temptation as well to make things more complex. And life is super complex, right? Like it's easy. There's a part. I mean, some of it's skill that I've gotten better at asking questions, and some of it's like just admitting my limitations and being a little bit more humble. Of like, you're asking me as if I have answers.
You've entered. Most people don't know this, but Jordan just got married, so he's entered the PhD level in school, applying what he's learned all this time.
Yes.
Is there any place you want to take this conversation?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the chat here, and I'm seeing so like that's where I want to take it. Probably would be, in relationship with the comments, people saying, "Oh, circling is joint meditation, exploration of the 10,000 foot view of ourselves," and I think that's at least half the story, and the other half is like exploration at the 0.0001 or the 10,000 view magnified version of ourselves. So it's because the view out often looks at our whole life. It's that zoom out. The other thing is the zoom in. So right now, I'm feeling, I'm feeling I'm looking for what to say. And normally, what we do is we like start finding. Let me help you find what to say. Let me solve that problem for you. And circling instead, we're like, well, let's zoom into the act of looking for what to say. What's that like? And I start looking. I'm like, oh, It's a little uncomfortable. It's a little exciting. And then we'll pick something else and zoom in. Oh, it's exciting. What's exciting about it? So sometimes it's that zoom out, and sometimes it's actually more and more fine, until it's almost like we're looking at the atoms of the interpersonal moment. And there's this question of, how do you do that? Especially when, and you guys probably have all seen this, you've seen when somebody is present. You can tell, like, even when Nitya and I are like present with each other, you can feel it. It's exciting. It's vibrant. It's part of what brings you to these webinars. And when somebody isn't present, if they're telling you something they've told 1,000 times, or they're thinking about something and not connecting with you, you can feel it. But it's very hard for us to catch that for ourselves. And so one of the things we do, and the reason we do it in relationship, is to help each other catch ourselves when we're not present. And say, oh, it seems like you just left yourself there. What's actually happening? Or I noticed I got distracted right when you said that. Are you still here? Or are you distracted? So the simplest answer to how you do it is by continuously bringing awareness back to the here and now in conversation. And I could say it's just phenomenology, like speaking the phenomenon of the moment, but that will keep you only on this side, and you can end up being very narcissistic, very self-reflective. So that's why you have to bring it into conversation, into relationship. It's like interpersonal phenomenology to make it complex, which is simply saying, what's happening now between us? Is that helpful?
So let me try to summarize what I got from that. It's like, what's it like to be me in this moment? I wonder what it's like to be you in this moment. And what's it like, the last question you asked, what's it like for us to be together? What's happening in our togetherness? And at least those three places, there may be others, but at least those three places, if you can just repeatedly bring our attention back. Like the first meditation technique I learned was Vipassana, where you would bring your attention to the breath, bring your attention to the sensations, the feelings, and maybe once in a while you bring your attention to the heart and radiate loving wishes. So those were your three foundations. So in this one, if you look at this as a meditation, then coming back to what's it like to be me right now, and revealing that in conversation. And checking in, what's it like to be you right now, and checking those assumptions. And is that true? I'm sensing this, but I may be wrong. Is that true for you? Or help me understand where you are. What's it like to be you right now? And in our togetherness, since we began talking, and even in this moment, what is alive? Is there a sense of connection? Is there a distance? Is there a warmth? What's really happening in our togetherness? Is it more of a heady space? Is it more, are we in our hearts? Are we in our emotions? So to me, that is how that landed for me, hearing you say that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful summary, and helpfully simplifies, as we were just talking about. Yeah. And so let's, especially that last one. So it's like, what's it like to be me? What's it like to be you? But what's our we like? Let's see if we can give a little demonstration so people can get a feel for that. That's the one that's, I think, the least common for us to speak to as in our everyday life, because it can be so vulnerable.
So let me give it a try. And I think I am going to spill a little bit into what's it like to be me. And I think that'll lead into that. So I'm noticing that, first of all, I'm really enjoying our conversation. And I'm regretting it's only an hour long. I wish we'd done 2 hours. And that's one. And also a little part of me is keeping track of a little bit of the comments and the questions, just to playing that hat of, how are we doing? Managing that as well, the second part of it, which is also fine. Not like it's taking too much energy, but just giving that some attention. And fascinatingly, a third part has been alive for a long time in this call, which is a kind of a pain or a grief within me, which is that I find myself, and this has been true, Jordan, for years. I find myself getting fascinated by things. I find myself buying books, signing up for courses. And then somewhere down the line, I'm not able to, even though I still love it, I'm not able to get myself to be involved. And the same thing is happening with, I love the Circle Anywhere platform. I love the Level Up course that I'm part of. And somehow I'll be doing, I want to go and watch the recordings. I want to be more involved. And it's like a shadow part of me. It's like, I don't understand why I'm not as involved as I want to be. And every week a new lesson is getting unlocked. And I'm not able to get myself as much. And I can come with 1,000 excuses, but there's no real excuse actually, because this is a pattern. So that's also alive in me in this moment. That my grief with why is it that things I enjoy doing and like doing, I sometimes hold myself back from fully going into it. And that's also alive. So I think I'm really, really what's more alive in me right now than in our togetherness. But our togetherness to me feels very safe and vibrant. It feels like a beautiful place to explore these things if we want to.
Yeah, I'd love to. And that's where in our togetherness, I notice one, it's like how it seems like you really trust me, and I trust you enough to speak to that and to want to go into it live. And I also noticed that about the way that you hold yourself and your community, that you're like really happy to share this and be open and honest and forthcoming. And there's a kind of a deep trust, a deep yes that I feel with you or with us. So, and then this is also a really cool example, a cool way to give, one of the things we do in circling is not make any assumptions about the story. So, and that's actually where my first curiosity goes is, it seems like you assume that you're doing something wrong, or that you should be watching those videos from Level Up.
It's not exactly wrong, but it feels like that would be such a cool way to spend some of my time. I would love to spend at least an hour a day doing that. But I don't always find that hour. I would be doing anything else. So why is it when I know it's important, it is a priority for me, it is something I want to go deeper into? And it's more meta than that. It's not just Level Up. This happens with many things in my life, right? So I tend to be a bit of a dipper into things. I'll buy a book, I'll dip into it, I'll get some taste of it. Oh, this is so cool. And then I don't allow myself to go deep. I'm not all in. I'm not Jordan all in. Right? So I don't think it's wrong, but I would say it's bugging. I would say, like, given a choice, I would like to dive in because it's something I enjoy. Why am I holding myself back?
Let's take that question seriously. Like there's no judgment in it. There's some reason why you're holding yourself back. It makes sense, or else you wouldn't be doing it. Right? It's serving you in some way. So let's kind of hold it with innocence and see what is it that has you hold back? What's good about holding back?
What's good about holding back? I mean, I can come up with something. I'm not fully convinced, but what's coming is that I don't need to clutter myself with any more concepts. I have enough concepts.
Right.
Oh, look who's come.
This is Ron. He's one of my greatest teachers. He never is flooded with concepts. Right. So there's something in you that's like, I don't need any more concepts.
Yeah.
And not only that, I imagine it's not just like, I don't need more concepts. It's like actively, I can feel the temptation to concepts and they're not really good for me.
I'm not fully convinced by that because I know that even those concepts make me inquire deeper. They take me to a place of reflection and stillness, and especially the kind of concept that we are talking about in the Level Up course, right? So I'm not entirely convinced by that explanation that I gave.
So what else? What else is there? You're like, it's not it. It's not just that I'm flooded with concept. There's more. What's this friend? It's almost like you've got this energy is a friend, right? It's not always right, but it's well intentioned.
In this moment, I'm sensing that I have a polarity within me of what one of the authors calls hyper focus and scatter focus. That I can be hyper when it comes to teaching, when it comes to certain activities like coaching, teaching, I can be like hyper focused. I can be like so tuned in, you know. And then there are times when I'm scatter focused, and it's hard to pin myself down. So I think the struggle is to convert, like when I'm in that scattered mode, how in that place to come to, especially like you see when there's a call like this, I have to show up. But when it's my own learning, then I could do it an hour later. I could do it in the afternoon. I could do it tomorrow. So there's no sense of I have to show up for this. So that's where it's harder to convert the scatter focus into a hyper focus. Although I know if I just sit down and start it'll happen. But the hardest part is sitting down.
There's still some problem that you're solving, right? You're like, I need to do something different.
Yeah, yeah. I have a sense. I would like to. I feel. I don't know. Whatever. I feel I would like to do it. I really enjoy this course you put together, and I want to be more engaged with it than I currently am.
Right. I want to be more engaged. What's it like not being engaged?
I feel I'm missing out.
Right. My
FOMO,
belly.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah. My belly was like that, and then my shoulders tightened when you speak about it. Like, oh God, I know that one. Fear of missing out.
Life could be so much cooler if I knew all the stuff that Jordan knows.
Right. Life could be so much cooler. I'm like, not only am I afraid of missing out right now, like I'm already missing out on the coolness that life could be if I knew what Jordan knew, if I had read these books, if I had totally. Yeah. Let's dive a little deeper into that. Like life is already, like I have a sense that there's more here that I'm not in yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good way of putting it. I feel like there's a party going on, and I've heard about a party in town, and I haven't quite gotten into it yet.
Right. So it's like a party. So then do you feel, I'm imagining, it's weird actually. If I knew there was a party I hadn't gotten to yet, I'd feel a kind of urgency. Okay, I need to rush through, like getting ready, taking a shower, putting on clothes to get to the party. I imagine it's a little different for you.
Yeah, I'm not having an urgency.
Yeah.
It's not like I want to break. It's not that kind of excitement. It's almost okay here. It's almost like the party's going on. I've also been invited to the party, and I'm just dilly-dallying. I mean, my friends are there. Everything's on. It's a great party. People are saying, "Hey, where are you? Come join." And I'm taking my own sweet time. I'm like, why am I taking my own sweet time? I don't even know.
Yeah, dilly-dallying. And it's a little like, is there a self-criticism?
There is. I mean, to a large extent, I've accepted that's just the way I am. But I feel a little bit. There's an element of resignation to it. It's like I wouldn't say it's 100% sweet acceptance. It's like, why am I like this? I don't want to be like this.
It's amazing. It's really interesting to be with, because I'm like, yeah, there's not that much self-criticism compared to a lot of people in something like this. You're pretty self-accepting, and yet there's just that little bit of resignation. This is a problem I have to fix. This doesn't feel great. I want something more. I'm longing for that aliveness of the party. Yeah. Something like it. Oof, when I feel into that, it's like, it gives me this feeling, this face.
But I'm enjoying, even though that's still there, it's alive and it's not pleasant, but I'm enjoying the fact that I can be so comfortable and transparent about it. And I think the space that you've created, we've created, whatever, and all the nice, encouraging comments that are there. Yeah, I also feel that. I said, okay, let's keep going. That's fine.
Right.
I'm also a little aware of time, so I also want to spend a little time on Q&A, and of course we don't have to necessarily. And even though we said an hour, we can always go a little longer. But these are all things on the table. I do want to at some point transition into how people can get involved with circling in different ways. Your community, their other communities, whatever you want to share around that. So I'll just let you, wherever we are with this, to just lead, whatever you want to do. I just want to trust you with that. Because I know we've opened something up. I don't know how much we want to go further into it.
Yeah. Well, for me, one of the things whenever, like, it's often one of my commitments is this meditation all the time. And so for me, I'm like, we can open something up and then boom, move on, and it's fine. And I'll take care of myself and you'll take care of yourself. I trust that. And it's been amazing to I'll go into tears on a subway train, in public, or I'll feel something, it's just like, and then, all right, on to the next thing. Now I'm buying a sandwich. Now, it's just, there's some of that I love being able to just stop and get on with our lives. And I'm always listening or tuning, like, how's the person that's opened up something? Do they know that? Do they know they can stop and get on with their lives?
Yeah.
And in this case, I'm like, yeah, Nitya knows. So we're good to go. We can just move on. If someone else were like, if you guys listening found your, empathetically were with Nitya and I, and you found your own version of like, yeah, I always feel like there's something better I could be doing with my time. And you started feeling that, like, you might have felt something very deep, like, I'm like fundamentally inadequate or not enough. And I'm projecting that out onto the world and seeing there's always more, and I'm never going to get there. And if it touched something really, really deep in you, encouragement is just to not get caught up in that, but still allow that to be present. So, okay, you feel what you feel. Your body might tighten up. You might dissociate. You might get distracted. All of that's fine. And you're just kind of giving yourself a little bit more space, a little welcome, coming back to your breath, coming back to our voices, and knowing that even as you feel that, you can also, just like you said, Nitya, you're proud of yourself for being able to share and notice it. It's like you're beyond it too. So you have that both, that witness and the embodiment.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
That feels quite complete, but a nice chapter to be explored another time, maybe with Valerie or something. We'll see. So
Exactly.
can I now turn our conversation towards something a little bit more practical?
Please.
So I'm getting many comments here about, for example, where would one start? How to experience and delve deeper into circling? Loveleen's asking this.
Right. So the best place to start is Circle Anywhere. We have online intros every week. We've just added a couple times that are better for the IST time zone. And for the intros, we've got 2 of those coming up. The intros are free. So you can basically go, and one of our, we've got on Circle Anywhere, we've got 5 to 10 sessions a day. And there's a couple dozen facilitators that are here to help guide the practice. And so the intros will take you through basic exercises, and you can kind of work your way in through the exercises, practicing kind of skills into a more focused on one person and into this kind of wild, chaotic, mimicking the openness of and flow of life itself. So yeah, going to—
Is that circleanywhere.com? What's the website again?
Circleanywhere.com. Yeah. If you go to circleanywhere.com, you'll see there's a link for the intro. You'll see the sessions. Circleanywhere.com should also translate into your time zone automatically, and you can see.
It does.
Yeah, good. And then, of course, with Circle Anywhere, you can go to one session. You can see if you like it. You can also get a membership and just get unlimited. It's like a yoga studio where you take a class or get a monthly membership and show up as many times as you want and get a bunch of support and a bunch of challenge. It's tough. We'll face weird things. If for some reason it doesn't seem, if you're like, oof, that's a little scary to jump in with a bunch of strangers, you may want to try doing one-on-one sessions. You may want to try getting a coach, or you can always Google. I mean, there's so Circle Anywhere is my company, and yeah, we have these sessions online. It's all the time. It's awesome. So it's really good for the global community as well. But if you just Google circling, you'll find a bunch of stuff happening all over the world, mostly in North America and Europe. But nevertheless, yeah, they all have different flavors, just like any community. If you go to a yoga or you go to a meditation, it'll be different. And yeah, you may want to, if for some reason Circle Anywhere doesn't quite speak to you, but you still feel this kind of intuitive call, see if something else calls to you.
Great. Someone's asking, I think you kind of answered this, but Nitya's asking, isn't the difficult part of this finding people who are interested in knowing what it's like to be you?
Well, I mean, that's one thing Circle Anywhere solves. You just show up and you'll have a bunch of people that are already interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's two things to that. One is I usually start by being interested in others. And then like even to the point, I remember when I was dating, I'm married now, but when I was dating, I had still done a bunch of circling. And I remember being on a first date in Amsterdam, and this woman, I had just been getting curious and basically circling her. And after like 2 hours, she's like, I don't know anything about you. And I was like, I felt like I kept sharing what the impact was. So, and I was like, oh yeah, but you don't know any details about me or my life.
You'd make a good con artist, Jordan. You make a perfect con artist because you know how you just to win people's trust, and it's like, oh, they know everything about them. They know nothing about you. Who's this guy? He just made me feel so good.
So yeah, that's one thing is, if I just follow my natural curiosity, it often opens the space where suddenly people are like, wait, I want to know about you. Who are you? What are you doing? What do you care about? And then the other thing is about that is that I kind of come with the attitude that I don't really know who I am until I kind of come into formation with you in the moment. So even telling you the story of how did I find circling? I'm kind of and I think this is actually a fact of biology too, right? Like we don't access memories that are stored. We remake them.
You remake them. That's so true.
So I'm like, I'm discovering myself with you in this moment. And so that makes it a lot more exciting to be with me. If you know that I'm not just giving you this, thing that I memorized, but you're discovering something with me, it's exciting. You can feel it. And so people tend to be a lot more interested and excited about that too.
This is so similar to like one of the questions I get asked almost all the time is, why did you become a monk? Why are you no longer a monk? And at some point I decided I'm going to answer that differently every time.
Yes.
I'm gonna check in this moment. How do I want to answer that? And not just have, otherwise it's so boring to say that thing again and again, same thing again and again. And what version of that wants to come out this time? So in a way, it's similar to the way you talked about, circling and how you came to it and your willingness to meet it again in this moment. Am I accessing a memory or am I creating a memory? What I focus on expands. Every time I access a memory, changes the memory in some sense. So I just find such a resonance with what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And then the more you've done that with, I'm sure, I mean, I can tell with you, like you did that with why did I become a monk? And then you practice it, you get used to it. So it becomes every moment.
Everything, yeah.
How are you feeling? Good question. How am I feeling? And it can be a little awkward at first because sometimes people are just asking that as a hello. And then
yeah. It's like, how do you do? The answer is, how do you do? That's not how do you actually do. Exactly. Jordan, what are the different kinds of things you offered? I think you kind of answered it, but nevertheless, like one is you can take a membership with Circle Anywhere, a subscription, but there's also Level Up. You want to talk about Level Up a little bit? What is Level Up?
So Level Up's awesome. Level Up. So if you like, you may even want to dive right into it. There's a few people that have done that. It's an 8-month transformational leadership program. We talk about it leveling up, awareness, maturity, and connection, basically. So that's where we teach, like you come to circling and you practice, but you're not going to get a whole lot of instruction. It's more, coming in and getting on the mat, or it's like scrimmaging, playing basketball, whatever you want to call it. And level up is where we go through and we're like, okay, every week there's a new 20-minute lesson, a 10-minute practice, and a demo circle that you can see in action with commentary. This is what the leader's doing. And they're live, they're recorded live. I get circled for the first one, and then everyone who's circling gets circled thereafter. And then that's combined with a bunch of personalized one-on-one coaching, one-on-one getting circled, circling someone else and getting feedback one-on-one. So just a lot of personal support of how to not only build the capacity of a circling facilitator, but what we're really pointed at is that meditation in connection and conversation. How do you bring that into your day-to-day life? And how do you kind of rest in or remember the version of you that already lives the thing that you think you're looking for?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. We just launched Level Up in January, and people are loving it so far.
Oh, was it just in January? So I'm one of the early students of Level Up. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But I mean, I've done circling trainings. I've done probably 15 to 20 circling, 6-month plus circling trainings over the past 7 years. Wow. And so this is kind of like distilling all of that.
It's so rich. It's such a rich, I just love it. It's so rich. There's some more questions here, which even though, are you okay to go for a few more minutes? We're kind of on the hour. Yeah, okay. So there's a question, what's the whole point of circling? What do you feel at the end? Do you really see a shift?
Very good questions. Do you really see a shift is the easiest one to answer. Yes. Not always immediately, but one of the most rewarding things about doing this work is that it's really hard to talk about, and so it's really hard to market. It's really hard to sell. What actually sells it is that people are like, that person is like, they'll be like, hey, Dara, you're different. Why are you different? And she's like, it's because I just trained in circling for 6 months or 9 months or whatever. And they're like, okay, now I want to do it because you're just genuinely a different person in a way that I like. You're better at listening. You're more honest. You finally show up with your radiance or your opinion that you used to keep hiding, whatever it is. So it seems like the proof's in the pudding, where like it works. I know because people's family and friends keep telling me that it works. Why do people do it is very different for each person. And it's another confusing one because some people come because they want to be different. They want to grow. They want to learn. They want to find the answer. And then the weird thing is circling continuously asks you to kind of put that on the altar of connection and surrender it and let go. I want to grow. Okay, well, what's that like? What's the discomfort that has you want to grow? So there's this weird way in which you kind of paradoxically have to step outside of that desire even as you meet it. So for me, why do I circle? It brings me into immediacy. So I'm actually living my life. I could feel it saying that right then and there. I stopped and just boom, I'm here with y'all.
Almost seems to me like it's life, living life in that moment. It's like, it's just that it's not even you living your life. It's just, to me, it seemed like you became life. Alive, became alive, became alive. I came alive.
That's it. Yeah. Life, living. I could say itself, but it's not separate. So it's just. Yeah.
Amazing. And so I know that you've added some sessions, some way that people in the Indian time zones can also attend. They can go to Circle Anywhere and discover the different things on your schedule, perhaps.
That's right. And we'll be adding, I think there's right now some good, I think there's sometimes in the evenings in the Indian time zones, but we're going to be adding some that are good in the morning too. So
Okay.
that'll be basically around now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah. For me, at least for me, that works. That's good.
Good.
Very nice, Jordan. Can we now,
Thank
some
you.
people have to leave and things. So how would you like to conclude our conversation?
I'd love to ask, let's get this one question that we missed, and maybe you can answer.
Okay.
What's the best thing to do when having anxiety and kind of self-critical verbal abuse in my own mind?
I notice my breath. It becomes very shallow. I've noticed a very direct correlation between breathing and anxiety. I don't get anxious very often, but I notice when I do, I'm breathing like super shallow, like breathing over here. And to bring that down to the chest, bring that down to the belly. I find anxiety and deep breathing to be incompatible. If I was to spend 3 to 5 minutes belly breathing, that would dramatically reduce my anxiety. And also shifting my focus from what is wrong, what has been wrong, and what will go wrong, especially what will go wrong, that's anxiety, to focus on all the supportive factors. And the supportive factors could be, just simple things I'm grateful for, people who love me, people I can rely on. Sometimes even just calling a friend can be very helpful. Those are the kinds of things that help me come out of my anxiety. And also just like what we've done today, just talking, being authentic about it, talking about like, because I'm a so-called spiritual teacher, I don't think I'm above anything. So I will, if I need support, I'll say, hey, I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling burnt out. I'm feeling whatever to a friend of mine. And I love that they can hold that space for me. Right. So I think that's what helps me. And so there's the idea of, I should never, because I'm Nitya Shanti, I should never be anxious or lonely or whatever. It's not true. I'm all of that. And in fact, it's my willingness to feel all of that more completely that enables me to be there for the others in my life instead of just giving them some philosophy or getting them to spiritually bypass it in some way. To really live the fullness of this life. And this is what attracts me to you and this community, because I think this is the highest level of spirituality, but in the most human possible way and in the most grounded possible way. And I think this is a revolution. And I think I mentioned this to you before. One of my aims is to make this available to people in my field, in my circle, in my community, the people that I've interacted with over the years, because they're growing with me. If they're connected to me, they're growing with me. And this is my leading edge. And I want to take them along. And I think there's a huge, every society, especially Indian society, we at one level are so collectivistic. And yet the more collectivistic we are, the deeper the shadow, because then we are afraid if I say something, how would it affect people around me? How would it affect my parents? How would it affect my in-laws? How would it affect and we actually have to put on a mask. In order to be collectivistic, we have to put on all these masks. So the unmasking and the showing who you really are is the next, we are encountering a lot of the societal challenges are coming from this shadow. And I think this work speaks directly to that, as opposed to just a transcendent, let me do my mantra, let me do my meditation, let me do my pilgrimage. Well, good for me, but there's no real change happening in the way we relate to each other. So I think this is really deep, and I don't even think I have, or even you have, or we have begun to scratch the surface of where this is going to go. And I just feel like surrendering to the momentum of where this is taking us. Yeah. And so for that, I'm grateful for you to show up and join me today.
Yeah, it's really an honor and a pleasure. And as we're closing, I want to just double down on that, what you said about the Indian culture being different. We've got a few Indians, a few on the platform, but for the most part, as you guys come in, I just want to encourage you to ask all the questions that you want and need to ask, and just feel really comfortable coming in and being like, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. Like there's going to be some cultural gaps at first that I really want to work hard to cross and find the right way to kind of say, bridge in both directions. It's not just that you need to come to us and learn what we need to learn. Like the community itself is circling with other communities. And we had got involved with a bunch of computer programmers called rationalists, and we taught them circling, but they taught us, Bayesian statistics. And there's the same invitation that y'all as a community come and influence us and grow us, and we're going to learn and become more interdependent with you.
Beautiful. Yeah, my heart feels warm, Jordan. It's been lovely, and maybe I can get you to come on again at some point, or some others from your community. And I think we'll keep this conversation going. I think people are really looking at the comments. People have got a lot out of it. So good. I would love to keep this engagement going in some way.
Good. Yeah, it's really a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, and goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining. We have a little thing that we do in my cult, which is something called Mayurma. It's a way of sending loving wishes. So Jordan, why don't you try this with me? Take your hands up like this and slowly bring them down and make a big heart in the air. And then you put one palm on top of the other. And you make an infinity circle, infinity symbol, which is a lying down 8 at your heart level. So 3 times. Infinity, bigger infinity, and huge infinity. And come to your heart, and we say together, Mayurma.
Mayurma.
Mayurma. Mayurma is a way of saying loving wishes for all. So we just made a big heart, and we multiply the heart by infinity 3 times. And that's the way I usually end my sessions.
Mayurma. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really a joy. Thanks so much. Be well. Good night.